There's a good question in here that I think would be good to answer. And it's, I think, a very interesting one. Is there any evidence of improved employability outcomes for certified individuals, e.g. higher salary, greater odds of being hired, job descriptions listing certifications as required or preferred, etc.? It's a lovely topic,
It is, but
lovely
I don't
subtopic.
know. There's very few. I mean, there are some studies, I think, but
I will tell you one I do know. It's not about increased employability, but in the food safety arena, there is research to show that once the food industry, the food safety industry, brought on certification programs and specifically accredited certification programs, CDC has some data that shows that the number of food safety incidents in establishments, restaurants, and supermarkets actually went down. So the number of health inspection violations that they had went down. That number, they directly correlated to the implementation of accredited certification for food managers.
yes, that's an important point. And Workcred is involved with the National Student Clearinghouse data project to bring certification data in with higher education data, as well as Census Bureau data of employability and earnings, so that we can begin to look at these successful pathways. So here again, looking at some standards about data collection is important, and it's one where we probably need better standards about what kind of data all certification bodies should be collecting. And it's probably the next frontier. As somebody said recently, data is the next oil in driving the economy. And I think that with standards and standards about data, this will be the next important arena where standards will play a major role.
I think those are wonderful points, and I will share that I am aware of a variety of studies that do indeed show a correlation between individuals who have earned certifications of varying types, as an individual who within the IT industry founded a large global testing program. We indeed also conducted studies based upon the credentials that we had created. And we had discovered that there absolutely was a very clear and causative connection between being able to demonstrate that one had skills, particularly when there were individuals who were un or underqualified in competition. It becomes a way of truly differentiating oneself. But it does something even beyond just the simple differentiation of proving that one has a skill, ability, and knowledge. It also shows, and this isn't necessarily the intended purpose of testing per se, it shows that one has the initiative and the energy to actually invest in oneself and to invest in one's own career, which is independently a really attractive thing for employers.
Yes, and of course in healthcare, it's not only a necessity, it's a necessity for obtaining a job. So it's also not a matter whether you're getting a raise or getting employed. You don't get employed unless you do have it in this regard.
Yeah.
And this is becoming a very important standard for hiring in this regard.
And
Absolutely.
when a credential, whether it's voluntary certification or mandatory licensure, but when a credential becomes mandatory for an occupation, you really need to make sure that it's valid and reliable and legally defensible, and that it is measuring what you think it's measuring, because the last thing we want to do is to keep someone from getting a job based on a faulty credential or a faulty process that didn't grant the person a credential.
Yeah, I think the legal defensibility issue is extremely important because when you deny certification, unless you have standards that you can take into court and show how you have followed those standards, you're going to lose in court. because you have no basis on which to prove that indeed this is a validated process for earning that particular credential.
That all of the points of differentiation ultimately have a clear and sound basis of necessity for making that selection choice. Very important. And we spoke earlier about law and about regulations. Of course, the Department of Labor's uniform guidelines cover this area pretty thoroughly. You know, it's inescapable that we live in an increasingly interconnected world. The job categories of yesterday have become so much more internationalized than they have in the past. It is possible that individuals have educational backgrounds and genuine competence to practice their abilities in many parts of the world. And one of the things that is so fascinating to me about the system by which within ANSI operates is the fact that when an ANSI 17024 accredited organization is accredited, then that accreditation has the basis for recognition in other parts of the world, because the ISO system ultimately winds up having the same standard in application throughout the world. The interpretation may be slightly different, as is required to meet the needs of the location and the specifics of the place. But generally speaking, when one, in manufacturing, for example, demonstrates that one's product meets a certain quality standard, it means that it can be accepted in other parts of the world with a minimum of corresponding regulation. And similarly, when individuals can demonstrate that they have skills and abilities with a particular certification credential that is accredited, it means that full faith and credit can be granted in other jurisdictions outside of the United States, for example.